her music has been featured in the Olympics, and so many people have now really come to appreciate one of her latest and most exciting albums, Through the Fire. Jennifer, welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Sure, it's delightful, and certainly the pleasure is really truly ours. As we were talking about a little bit beforehand, classical music is kind of where I began, and you certainly started really early, if I'm not mistaken, at the age of 3.
I actually started at 5,
Oh,
close. But
okay.
yeah, I started on violin and piano when I was 5 years old, and my mom actually started teaching me. And she's so talented. She plays a plethora of instruments as well. And I have 3 brothers, and all of us had to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning to practice. And she was very dedicated to teaching us. And then, yeah, I eventually went on to study classical music in college after that.
Sure. So I wanted to get into that a little bit because I know a lot of times this can be something that isn't always appreciated, like how one develops a relationship with their parent when they're also a teacher. It can sometimes be a challenge, and then other times, in this case, certainly a blessing. Just talk to us a little bit about sort of those things, the ways that it was positive and really somehow brought the best out of you, but also at times where you're like, I don't want to get up so early in the morning. This feels like work.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm a mom as well. I have 3 boys, and I know the struggle of trying to teach my kids something. I have so much more appreciation for my mom now as an adult, having now experienced motherhood. But yeah, she was just amazing. I always just admired her talent and I wanted to be like her. Um, Out of my brothers and I'm the only one who stuck with it. And so I would say probably when I was about 12, um, there was this really old movie with Frank Sinatra and Gene Kelly, Anchors Away. And there's a scene in the movie where they sneak into the Hollywood Bowl and there's like 17 grand pianos on stage and they sneak on and they listen to this whole concert. And I just remember I was 12 years old and I watched that movie and I said, "Oh, that's what I want to do. I want to do that. That's so amazing." And I just started practicing so hard and um when I got into my teenage years, it got to the point where my parents were actually like, "Please stop practicing so much." So there was a lot of battle with like I don't know. The piano was a very loud instrument, and yeah, so we definitely had our pros and cons growing up and everything. But yeah, it was a really good experience having my mom start out my training.
Sure, absolutely. And just if you don't mind sharing with us, who might be some of those other role models that you had when you were younger, or that you may still have now that you kind of look up to and that inspire you?
Yeah, so even though my beginnings were classical and I went on to train classically, I have always loved film scores, and that plays a huge part into where my music is now. I mean, stylistically, it's very cinematic and epic. And so, even though I was studying, I mean, my classical heroes were always Beethoven, Rachmaninoff, the more passionate players. But on the side, I was just, a huge fan of John Williams and Hans Zimmer and Danny Elfman and just all the movie scores. Those are my first CDs and my first music collection. So, yeah.
Sure. And was there an experience? I know you talked about the movie, the shot at the Hollywood Bowl, which is certainly infamous itself. It's just so magnanimous to go there. Was there a particular event? Sometimes there's a school outing or something where you went to a large symphony or a large orchestra and just were smitten or really just impressed with the sheer magnitude of the sound.
um, I, you know, right after I got home from college, I got a job with the Seattle Symphony, and it was just like a really low paying office rat kind of job. I worked in the education department, and basically, the school kids would come in, and I would give them tours around the hall and teach them about instruments and things. But the great thing about that job is I got so many great perks. I got free tickets to all the concerts, and I got to meet Joshua Bell and Itzhak Perlman and even Pearl Jam. They came to perform at. So just I just remember like seeing all these artists from backstage view and watching them, and that was so huge and so inspiring.
Sure. Now, classical itself, just talk to us a little bit about it. what sort of really helped you fall in love with it and appreciate it? Because so many times we want young people to be exposed to classical music and to appreciate the art of study, but they can certainly be pulled into things that are a little bit more timely. We'll just say it that way. What key elements do you feel make up classical music that still help have it resonate not only with you but with many of your fans?
Um, I still try to always incorporate some type of classical theme or elements into my music that I write now, just to give younger generation a more current version of classical music. I'll put like EDM beats or a lot of electronic stuff mixed in with the classical. That's what I'm doing now. But for me, I don't know. There's just so much passion in classical music, and there's something when I listen to it. I don't, and they say this is true that classical music makes you smarter. It does something with your brain and helps you memorize better. But I really feel when I listen to it, I just get so immersed in it, and I actually feel like I don't know. I feel like I'm getting smarter listening to it or something. But it's always I don't know. It's just very inspirational.
Sure. Just out of curiosity, because you certainly mentioned family when we talk about your kids in a bit. Did you play music and classical music? Do you sometimes have it on in the car? Maybe not all the time, of course, but is it something that sometimes you feel like, oh, it can be nurturing, or it helps me to relax, or it helps me find a feeling or a mood or a space?
Yeah, well, so I love so many different genres of music, and classical is my rainy day go-to. So if it's just kind of moody out and it's raining, I will put on Vivaldi or um, one of my favorites right now is Max Richter. He's a modern composer, but he has a whole album of remakes of the Vivaldi Four Seasons, and I can't even concentrate on anything because I just sit there and then I start my mouth is just like, oh, it's just so amazing, and I just get into it. But yeah, classical is my rainy day music.
Sure. And talk to us about sort of composing and arranging, sort of where that came from and how you started to do that, because that's a whole nother level.
Yeah, so I had no training in composing whatsoever. Like I said, I went to college for classical performing, and when you're a performer, it's a lot like, being an actor where you're just given a script and you just play the part. And same with performing on stage, you just play the music. And in the world of classical music, it's there's an etiquette and protocol to playing everything just right. And that was always something that was hard for me because I was never a perfect performer. And I would get nervous playing on stage because I would just think about like, don't make a mistake. Everyone's judging you. And so that aspect of classical music was hard for me. There came a point when I went to this concert and it was just Nancy Rumble and Eric Tingstad. They play oboe and guitar, and they just played this gorgeous, beautiful, simple concert. And I came away feeling so inspired, and I thought I want to compose music, and I just started playing around and composing things, and started sending them to like friends and family, and they would say, "Oh, this is great. You should burn it to a CD, and we'll send it to everyone." And that's kind of just how it started. My first album took me about 3 years from start to finish, and it was just so humble. I did it in my apartment, um, but yeah, that's kind of how it started, and it's just evolved with each project since then.
Sure. And talk to us about sort of the power of working with an orchestra, because you talked about sort of like very beginning humble, which is certainly true of so many people,
Yeah.
be writing on their floor or in their apartment or in their room, and really sort of that transition to a stage of that magnitude.
Yeah, well, one of the most amazing, humbling experiences for me. Well, I said earlier I used to work at the Seattle Symphony, just a low-paying office job, and I got to stand backstage and watch these amazing artists on the Grand Concert Hall, and never would I ever imagine that that would be me. And twice now I've performed on that same stage with full orchestra with my own original music, and every time I've done it, I don't know. It's just like a pinch me. I cannot believe I'm doing this. And I still remember being in college where I was doing just strict classical, and the height of anyone's solo career is to perform a concerto with an orchestra. And I'm on stage at Benaroya Hall in Seattle with my music, and I'm like, it's kind of like I'm playing a concerto, but it's my music. Like I don't know. It's just it's mind blowing to me because I never ever thought I would ever be doing that.
Sure. Well, the sound, like you said, it is just epic, and the
Thank you.
transformation has just been, simply amazing. I wanted to talk about sort of that feeling that you might want to pass on to younger people who may be kind of just trying to figure out how they find their sound and how they find their way to composition or even performing on a grand scale, because it certainly seems very intimidating and daunting,
Yeah.
often essentially by yourself, even if you may be surrounded by an orchestra. The focus certainly is on you.
Yeah, well, I can't just emphasize enough just to be yourself because early on, when I was just starting writing my music, I was starting to connect with others in the composing community, and I kept getting a lot of advice on, oh, you should take away this or do this, and I had a very particular idea of what I wanted my music to sound like, and it was very niche. Like I couldn't find a good home for it because it wasn't classical, it wasn't new age, it was just kind of its own thing, and that was really hard. But I remember like, no, I'm just gonna follow my vision and stick to it. And I think that that is the key for anyone. Just be yourself, be true to your own artistry, and it will pay off for you. If anything, it will make you happy because if you're trying to be someone else or trying to please everyone, then you're not going to thrive in your art, and it's not going to be you.
Sure. Now is a good time to sort of have you do a setup for one of the songs that you love, and just tell us a little bit about it, and then we're going to take a listen.
One of my own songs or
Yeah, or
yeah.
just one that you love playing.
Okay. Well, one of my favorite songs from my album that I just released, The Fire With is called The Fire Within, and I wrote that song with another female composer. Her name is Kimberly Starkey, and we wrote it as a two piano duet. We got to play it on stage with an orchestra, and then there's a scene. I don't know if you're going to show part of the music video for this, but if you watch the video on YouTube, we burn a piano, and that was uh that was actually me playing a burning piano, and I got a little backlash from that from the classical music community for burning a piano, and it actually went viral on classic FM, and it was really hard. It was my first internet bullying experience, and I had to explain to everyone. I'm like, no, it was a really old broken piano, like beyond repair, and there's no way I would have burned like a valuable instrument. But that was just it was an amazing experience because I was actually out in the desert when we filmed that, and it was so windy. And as the fire was burning through the piano, you could hear the strings, like the tones in the air from the wind whipping through it, and it was just really, really cool.
Amazing. Well, that's a remarkable setup and an amazing list. I love that. Are there times, and only because you went here, so I want to just open this up a little bit, and I know you're not into comedy per se, but where you may feel like, gosh, some communities are so worried about every possible thing, like you said, that you may have had to in the future put out a disclaimer that no,
I
living
have.
pianos or those that still had life to breathe were sacrificed in the making of this video.
Yeah, I've definitely had to actually put that disclaimer on a follow up video just because I got so many confused people. But I've just come to the realization that you can be the brightest, juiciest peach in the orchard, and there's always going to be people who hate peaches. So just do you, and if they don't like it, then they can move on.
Sure. Well, I think that the passion that came across and the cinematic, how shall we say it, it was almost sort of like um, really emblematic of the fire music and the connection that you had. I mean, I watch you as you're walking and just the colors and things like that. Like you said, gripping, cinematic, and honestly, the best word I can come up with is poetry in motion. That's really what I felt, and I took it in an analogous format as opposed to uh, hopping online and sending
Yeah, I
a
love that. You saw the art.
sure, yeah.
Yeah.
But I thought it was so powerful. On that line, you have obviously been such an inspiration to so many women and so many performers. Talk to us about sort of how this connection with some of the Olympians started and where it's gone to.
Yeah, so my music has just been spreading in the figure skating community for a few years, also gymnastics, and I it's kind of a weird situation because I never know about it until the season starts, and then I start getting tagged, or people are like, "Oh, I saw your music on whatever ice skating championships," and I get so excited because I'm a huge fan of figure skating as well, and I love sports, and where my husband is an athlete, and I just to have my music used in that format is so much better than any award or any accolade I could ever win. It's just getting to watch someone else perform their art to my music is just, I don't know, it touches my heart and I love it. As for the Olympics, that was a total surprise. I had been contacted by the Russian team right before the Summer Olympics, and they said, there's a chance we might use your music, but I didn't know. I signed a release, and then I didn't know if it was going to happen or not. And then, yeah, I kept getting messages from people, Jennifer, your music is in the Olympics, and it was a
Um,
nice surprise.
it's so great. I think now is a good time to pick one of those pieces that, like you said, means a lot to you and is probably one of the greatest living compliments of your work when it's featured by a Olympic performer, whether they're in skating or gymnastics. What might one of those pieces be that really is a treasure to you for someone to use?
I think my favorite one is A Beautiful Storm. It's actually from my very first album, which still blows me away that 12 years later it's still getting used. But there's a Japanese skater, Rika Kihira, she used it in her season and it just went crazy. And I ended up getting a record deal in Japan for that. And it opened it up to a whole new audience in a different part of the world that had never heard it, and it was really special to me because that was one of the first songs I ever wrote, and then to see where it went, yeah, it was really awesome.
Sure, let's. But tell us about sort of charting, super high, number three, number two in Billboard charts and things like that, and some of the accolades that have come that are tangible awards. I know we talked about how the Olympians that have used it really certainly mean a lot, but just sort of winning those awards sometimes can be representative of your community of listeners that appreciate the work that you're doing. And their way of saying thank you, how it feels to have won some of those accolades.
Oh, thank you. It's always just a little bit of icing on the cake. It's not, I don't think it defines me or it's just, it's nice. And I'm very honored whenever something like that happens. To chart on Billboard was a big deal for me, though. I was so excited about that because I think I was right next to Yo-Yo Ma for his album, and I just remember growing up, and he was one of my musical idols. I'm like, no, that was that was amazing.
Sure, in the path to greatness. And then COVID comes along and really sort of changes things. We've been talking about ascent and all these positive things and
Yeah.
whatnot, and you're on a high and ascending to worlds that maybe even you had not imagined that you'd be taken to in terms of going overseas and into the Olympics. What did that transition mean for you, and what types of things did you have to change?
So I had just finished I did an 8-week tour for The Fire Within. I did 20 cities. My family came with me. My little boys, they were so cute. They did the merch table, and um, so it was a whole family affair.
Right.
And yeah, so like, the pandemic basically hit right as we came off of tour, and I was already like planning other tours that I had to cancel, and um I just started this is something that I've had to really work on the past year because I had never dealt with this before, but I started getting really bad anxiety just about um, the state of the world. I I mean, this is gonna sound so melodramatic, but there were days where I felt like I'm losing my faith in humanity, and I feel like the world is just going to pot, and is this ever gonna end? And I've had to really focus on my mental health, and I've always been such an ambitious go-getter when it comes to my career, and I found like during this whole pandemic I have just had to have grace for myself. And if it's too much, to just take days off and just take care of myself. So I'm not like, I don't know, getting too overwhelmed or getting too anxiety ridden.
Sure. Well, we appreciate the honesty and the transparency because those are emotions, certainly as a clinician, that I see all the time. We feel that the current state of affairs, be it the pandemic, world situations that you're hinting at, that may seem, like you said, that things are coming to
Yeah.
they're going to hell in a handbasket, as grandma used to say, are definitely stressful and a very real emotion that so many of us do face because it is coming from a spirit of fear and some uncertainty. We don't really know exactly all of the sort of underpinnings of what this all means in the greater context.
Yeah.
We can be limited in our understanding when it comes to really deep things like, wow, the whole world has shut down. That's not something any of us have ever experienced or probably could have imagined should have been in a movie. uh,
Hmm.
and it seems very surreal when you're going through it. So no, I appreciate your candor and comfort at being able to sort of bring that out. Are there some ways that music acts as the heroine in your life, in that it was able to sort of, as you were saying, on those rainier days where Vivaldi may help, kind of pull you out of a funk or lift you up or give you hope in humanity?
Yeah. I'm gonna get personal here for a second. Music for so many years, I mean, it's what I did. It was, it's my career, and of course I love it. But like I said, I was always just very like type A, go get everything. If I have a goal, I do it.
Right.
And when this pandemic hit, I really just crashed. And for the first time, my music, I people would tell me, Jennifer, your music healed me, or your music did this for me. And of course, I'm like, that's so amazing. But like to finally experience it for myself, where I would sit down at the piano, and I mean, there's just so many nights where I would just be in tears, and it was almost like a spiritual experience where my music was finally healing me, and not just like the soft, sad music, but the music that would transport me to fantastical worlds of imagination where I could escape reality and just create different realities to escape what we're currently dealing with. So yeah, music has been huge for me this past year, and not just my music, but all kinds of genres depending on what I need at the time.
Sure. Well, like I said, I really appreciate you feeling comfortable being able to talk about that because these are some of those deeper levels when we talk about sort of what the show means, and
Hmm.
sometimes words kind of fail us really to be able to describe exactly how music can, like you said, transport us to a fantastical world and things like that. But all of us, I think, at some level can relate to different ways or different times that music has sort of been a saving grace or a place that we've gone to. And certainly this whole idea of like you said, go, 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 go. And then all of a sudden, boom, the door shuts right in your face and
Yeah.
you can do it. And it's like, oh my gosh, how did I get here? What's going on? Isn't something, in any way, I think, to be ashamed of or even afraid of. And I love the conversations about it because I think that it helps other people get a voice that we may not get a chance to be able to talk to because they're not some highly acclaimed musician and their music's being played in these lofty places, but
Yeah.
your ability to share and dig deep, I feel really can not only resonate with me but a lot of people that are listening because so many of us have those situations where it is really surprising how things can turn around. You're
Mm.
going down one direction, and all of a sudden, life in this case really snapped all of us in a completely different direction. And I think may have even changed some of our value systems. On that note, do you feel like, gosh, I really did wind up getting closer to my children or closer to my music, or really finding a different way of expressing some of the feelings that I have because I developed a different insight?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely feel like this whole pandemic situation has helped me see what is most important to me and kind of like cut through the fat. Like, I have too much going on. I'm going to get rid of those things and just focus on the things that actually are important and make me happy. And my family is definitely one of those. And then just, I don't know, I used to feel so guilty like when I would say no to things because I'm a people pleaser. And I think I've really grown a lot to just become more confident in myself and also just, realize my limits and say, you know what, I can't handle the workload. I'm going to say no to that. And it's really made me really evaluate each opportunity, and it becomes more meaningful too because then the things that I do say yes to is like I really want to do those things.
Sure. Well, we certainly appreciate you saying yes to us. Um, One thing to have you share with us before you run, though, is imagining some young person that maybe was just getting ready to do a tour and then the pandemic hit before they could
Mm,
launch it, or they feel like they're getting stymied in their career, be it a young woman or a young man. What piece of advice now being able, like you said, to kind of look all the way back, if I'm not mistaken, in 2003 when you released your first album, so almost 20 years now.
mhm.
What might you say to them if they're basically hitting a wall or feeling overwhelmed or anxious?
I would say if you haven't taken advantage of all the tools online for musicians, now's the time because that was, I mean, there's so many more opportunities online now. And I know it's not the same thing. I know doing a streaming concert is not the same as in a concert hall, but there's also a really great side to that too. They can really focus on reaching more people. And just hang in there. Let music be your healing vice during this and just focus on that. I mean, I've been writing an album during this pandemic and I've had to cancel recording sessions so many times and postpone things, but in the end the music has been so much better, and I've actually written songs that were inspired out of things that came from this. And so I think in the end all ends up how it's supposed to be, and the art is better for it. An artist always create out of hardships. So I think that's important to remember too. Like, this is hard, but it's going to make you create really good art.
Sure. I promised I would highlight them a little bit more, and I love the way you mentioned that you take your children on the road and literally become part of the business. Just talk to us about sort of that juggle and that struggle, because sometimes I think that we do aim to be able to keep all these plates balanced, but it is tremendously difficult in reality, and yet something that's still very important. You don't want to maybe be that person that is on the road and get home
Yeah.
super late, and the family may not know what city you're in, or sometimes you may not even know, where you're at. You're zipping and zapping so much.
Yeah, I mean, I have an amazing husband who he's just so awesome. He actually gave up his career at Microsoft to he could be a partner in my music. He does cinematography for me. So I feel very fortunate to have him, but um it's just a lot of to not define yourself in a role. Um, I think it's just so important. Also, I want my boys to see their parents working really hard, and we've built this from the ground up, and they see us working hard. And um, yeah, it is definitely a juggling act, and also something I've had to learn as just being a mother is to not be too proud to like I would spend a whole day doing dishes and cleaning my house, or I finally got to a point where I'm like, okay, I need help. Like, I need to hire someone to do this. And I think sometimes as moms, we're like, if we have to ask for help, then somehow we think that we're not like the greatest mom or whatever. And I think it's just important to, if you need the help, get it. Because if it helps you do what you need to do and makes you happy, then it also provides someone else with work that they can use as well. And that's important too. So it's just a juggling act. And it's hard, but yeah.
Absolutely. If there were some advice you could give to yourself when you were younger, now kind of looking back, even though you're still very young, what
Oh, I'm
might
not that
be,
young.
what might be just a couple of pearls that you feel either the business of music has taught you, or just touring and things like that, where you might really be able to be more insightful, or learn from some experiences you've been through?
I would just tell my younger self that I struggled with body image so much when I was younger, and sometimes I wouldn't want to get on stage. And I know that a lot of younger people struggle with that so much right now, especially with the social media. And if I could just tell my younger self, a piece of advice, it would be that you are just as worthy no matter what size, what you look at. It's not about what you are on the outside. It's about the music. That's what people want to connect to, and to just get over yourself.
Sure. Well, yeah, no, I appreciate you sharing that. This has come up before. I think that one of the big challenges that we see in the society is that kind of social media is raising the kids, and so this definition of exactly what beauty is or what perfection
Yeah,
is has really gotten warped. And I think it's so helpful to hear that we need to be reminded that loving yourself first is so important,
yeah,
because there will always be, as you said, there'll always be somebody that doesn't like peaches, but there'll always be someone that's critical, that's having a bad day, or that's coming from a bad place and sort of seeking to bring you down and things like that. And
yeah.
you have to really get to a state of being able to accept who we are, and not try to live up to others' expectations. But sometimes I don't think they really know exactly what it is they want either.
It's
It's
hard. I
yeah.
try to remember what someone else thinks of me is none of my business.
No, I think that's so important. Take us out with just maybe one last piece that you feel is also emblematic of your career, or that you just really enjoy.
Well, since we were just talking about body image, I on my last album I wrote a song called Girl in the Mirror, and if you do want to take a listen to that, it was a healing song for me to get over that part of my life, and it's all about loving yourself and loving the person in the mirror.
This has been so wonderful. I feel like you've been so comfortable and transparent with sharing some inner challenges that everybody faces. I mean, to say that the pandemic can't strike some fear in pretty much everybody now that all of us know of someone or some situation that, oh my gosh, I can't believe people got sick at that, or I can't believe, so and so has passed. I think would be not sort of in denial, so to speak, of the gravity of the situation. And
Yeah.
likewise, coming up through the business, it is a very intense and harsh place sometimes. And trying to find mentors and positivity and surround yourself with that, I think is such an inspiration to people.
Oh, thank you so much. It's been so great to talk with you, and I've loved our conversation.
Sure. Thanks so much. Shameless plugs, please tell us where we can find you and about things that are sort of to come.
Well, I'm obviously on all the regular social media. I have a YouTube channel, if you want to watch my videos. Something exciting today. I'm part of an all women group called Epic Women, and we just signed with Warner Chapel, and we just made that announcement today. And I just have to plug that because it's not only it's just a whole group of women producers and composers, which is amazing, and also a portion of the proceeds go to the Children of Ethiopia Education Fund, so we can help young girls get educated too.
Sure. I love that. So important. And just we just can't put enough efforts. I think too much time was spent having men try to be in charge of everything, and we mess it up, and we have messed it up. And so it's
2%. Two.
time
I
for us
know.
to sit down, not your husband, but for us to sit down and stop trying to run things. And
Oh.
we're not going to go there, but
No, I was just gonna say
certainly.
only 2% of women of producers are women. So
Yeah,
yeah.
I think it's so important. It's certainly something we want to highlight here as well because it's just the time is long since been overdue. It's not just that it's
Yeah.
overdue. So thanks so much for letting
Thank
us
you.
home and your heart, giving us of your time and away from your family for a few moments. So
Of
we
course.
appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me, and I hope you stay healthy and well. And yeah, thank you for